On May 8, 1945, the day Germany surrendered, a single question spread across Europe like cold wind through broken streets. What would happen to the Waffen SS now? These soldiers, once at the center of the Third Reich's war machine, suddenly found themselves without a country, without protection, and without answers. Many feared what waited for them. Some prepared to hide. Others hoped to simply go home. But millions wondered the same thing. Where did they all go? Who faced justice? Who disappeared? And who walked back into ordinary life as if nothing had happened? This documentary explores that hidden story, how thousands of men from one of the most feared military formations in the Second World War tried to rebuild their lives after the conflict ended. Their paths were different, sometimes surprising, sometimes quiet, and sometimes filled with long shadows that followed them until their final days. The war was over, but its consequences were only beginning. The story begins with the collapse of Nazi Germany. As Allied forces pushed deeper into the country, many Waffen SS units were ordered to fight until the last bullet. Others surrendered in small groups, hoping for mercy. Most of the men were young, some barely 18, who had joined years earlier, often shaped by propaganda, nationalism, or military ambition. But once the war ended, they were all simply prisoners. Many were taken to large camps run by the Americans, British, Soviets, or French. In these camps, their future depended on who captured them, where they served, and what their commanders had done. Interrogations began immediately. The Allies needed to understand each man's role. Who was a frontline soldier, who served in concentration camps, and who took part in war crimes. For some, this process took weeks. For others, it took years. From here, the story begins to follow individual lives, men whose paths showed the different fates of the Waffen SS. One of them was Paul Hauser, a highly respected general long before joining the SS. Born in 1880 to a family with a strong military tradition, he grew up studying at Prussian academies and served in the First World War. After Germany's defeat, he continued serving in smaller units and trained young soldiers. When he joined the SS in the 1930s, he used his long experience to help shape their fighting forces. Throughout the war, he commanded divisions on the Eastern Front and in France, often praised for his strategic skill. After 1945, Hauser faced a very different life. He was captured by American forces and questioned for months. During his time in prison, he spent most days writing, trying to explain his actions and defend the Waffen SS as a purely military organization. When he was finally released, he lived quietly in West Germany. In the 1950s, he became one of the voices for a veterans group that tried to argue the Waffen SS should be treated like regular soldiers, not criminals. He wrote books, gave statements, and spent his later years shaping how former members told their own history. He died in 1972, still convinced of his view, even as many historians disagreed. Another figure with a very different path was Joachim Peiper, once known as one of the youngest and most confident commanders in the Waffen SS. Born in 1915 in Berlin, he grew up in a family of civil servants and joined the Hitler Youth in his teens. He entered the SS early, trained hard, and rose quickly. During the war, he fought in Belgium, Italy, and on the Eastern Front. His units became known for speed and bold attacks, but also for brutality.
At the end of the war, Peiper was captured by American troops. His name became central in the Malmedy case, a trial investigating the murder of American prisoners during the Battle of the Bulge. He was sentenced to death, later changed to life in prison, then reduced again. In the 1950s, as public opinion slowly shifted and new evidence was reviewed, Peiper was released. He moved to France with his family and tried to live quietly as a translator and car designer. But his past followed him. In 1976, after growing threats, his house was set on fire. He was found dead inside.
At the end of the war, Piper was captured by American troops. His name became central in the Malmedy case, a trial investigating the murder of American prisoners during the Battle of the Bulge. He was sentenced to death, later changed to life in prison, then reduced again. In the 1950s, as public opinion slowly shifted and new evidence was reviewed, Piper was released. He moved to France with his family and tried to live quietly as a translator and car designer. But his past followed him. In 1976, after growing threats, his house was set on fire. He was found dead inside. His story became one of the most argued and controversial cases of the post-war years. Another man who faced a long legal process was Fritz Witt, though his life ended earlier. Born in 1908 to a modest family, he joined the SS in its early years and helped form the Hitler Youth Divisions. During the war, he served as commander in Normandy. In June 1944, while Allied forces bombed the region, Witt was killed by naval artillery. He never lived to see the trials or the years after the war. His friends and fellow officers later spoke of him often, showing how some stories ended before justice could reach them. The story of the Waffen SS also includes men like Richard Schulz Cossens, who did not serve directly in frontline forces, but held high-ranking roles close to leadership. Born in 1914, he studied in Vienna and later became an adjutant at the Führer's headquarters. After the war, Schulz Cossens spent time in Allied camps. Once released, he worked as a teacher and wrote several books describing life inside the high command. He lived until 1988, often staying connected with SS veteran circles and appearing in interviews, shaping how some former members remembered the war. While some men lived quietly, others vanished into the vast movements of post-war Europe. Many young soldiers returned home to find their cities destroyed, their families missing, and their futures uncertain. Some went back to farms, factories, and small businesses, trying to blend into normal life. A few changed names, moved to new towns, and hid their pasts from neighbors. Many never spoke about their time in the Waffen SS again, even to their children. But the story did not end there. As the Cold War began, new tensions shaped new fates. In West Germany, the need for experienced soldiers led to debates about whether former Waffen SS members could join the new army, the Bundeswehr. Strict rules were made and only those cleared of crimes were allowed in. Even then, acceptance was limited. Meanwhile, in East Germany, the Soviet government closely monitored former SS members. Many were not allowed to hold official jobs and were kept under regular watch. Some former members moved even farther away. South America, especially Argentina and Chile, became a quiet destination for many Europeans after the war. Some of these men lived in small communities, worked in farms or shops, and rarely spoke about where they came from. A few later appeared in interviews, documentaries, or court hearings, still carrying the memories of the war. The legal process also continued for decades. Trials in Germany, Poland, France, and other countries reopened cases based on new documents or witnesses. Some former officers were arrested in their old age, brought from retirement homes to courtrooms. Others lived openly, without ever facing charges. The passage of time slowly closed many cases, but historical interest continued to grow.
By the 1960s and 70s, many former Waffen SS members were writing memoirs or joining veterans groups. Some gatherings were simple reunions of old soldiers. Others were attempts to reshape how history saw them. These views were questioned by historians, lawmakers, and survivors of the war. Across Europe, the debate about the Waffen SS grew more complex, one of identity, responsibility, and the long shadow of conflict. As the years passed, the men grew older. Many lived quiet final decades, keeping their wartime experiences locked away. Some spoke only to historians late in life, often sharing memories they had hidden for 50 years. Others continued defending their role until their deaths. By the early 2000s, only a small number of former members remained alive. Today, the story of what happened to the Waffen SS after the war is made up of thousands of these personal lives. Some faced long trials, some disappeared, some lived quietly, some tried to rewrite their past, and some kept their stories untold. But together, their paths reveal how the end of the war was not the end of history. It was the beginning of a complicated, often hidden chapter that shaped Europe for generations. In the end, the question asked on May 8, 1945 still echoes: what truly became of the Waffen SS? The answer lies in these lives, ordinary, complicated, sometimes dark, sometimes quiet, stretching far beyond the battlefield into the long years after the guns fell silent.